In just a moment. Okay.
Can you hear me with this mic plugged in?
Definitely.
Oh, but now I can't hear you. Oh, wow. That's okay.
You got it? Okay. We are live. All right. All right. Well, again, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the 11th Annual National Black Economic Conference on behalf of the Mosaic Group, Black Business Loop, Black Chamber of Commerce of Palm Beach County, and the Urban League of Broward County. We are still excited to have you here for this virtual experience this year. You are now all going to be in the panel with Black in Business. Where are we in the supply chain discussion? And before we introduce our panelists or our panel, we'd like to thank you, you all for being here. And again, our sponsors, FPL, Discover the Palm Beaches, Complete Contract Consulting, Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau, Florida State Minority Supplier Development Council, South Florida Times, Miami Media Group, LLC, Valley National Bank. Big thank you to all of our sponsors. We are also going to be moderated today by Ms. Petula Burks, and she will be joined by panelists Terrence Clark, Dr. Dion Roundtree, Beatrice Louis Sant, and Robert Ballou. Without further ado, we will get started, and I will turn this over to our moderator for the evening or for the afternoon, Ms. Petula Burks. Ms. Burks?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's so great to see you all. I wish we could be in person, but I'm able to have this conversation virtually. As we get started, I just want to start with everyone sort of telling us a little bit about your organization and your economic development efforts in the Black business community. So we can start with Clark.
Okay, and good afternoon all. Hope everybody's well and safe. I am Terrence Clark. I'm the president and CEO of the New York, New Jersey Minority Supplier Development Council. And our organization is one of the 23 councils that make up the National Minority Supplier Development Council with several goals, but the major goal being to enhance and grow minority businesses, and obviously in particular Black-owned businesses. Our particular council covers the entire state of New York, northern and central New Jersey, up to the state capital of Trenton. And there are several things that we do, and my colleague Beatrice will probably expand on some of what I say. But one of the things that we do is we certify businesses. What we're certifying is that these businesses are owned, operated, managed, and controlled by an ethnic minority. In other words, we want to make sure that we're helping business owners, we're helping those business owners that are truly minority owned and operated and managed businesses, and not what people would consider fronts. So that's one thing. Help to develop these businesses. And what we talk about and mean by development is the fact that we put together various programs to enhance their business skills and other programs to enhance market and networking opportunities. Because, I'm a firm believer in the fact that people do business with people they know, they like, and they trust. So we're kind of in the helping you to get to know people business. Can't really help you like and trust people. That's on you. But we can certainly help as far as getting you to know people and getting you to know people that under normal circumstances you may not meet. So, so that's a greater part of it. And then we have the other part, which is connecting you to our corporate members. And who are our corporate members? These are businesses, large businesses, generally, many in the Fortune 1000, that have expressed an interest in or have a supplier diversity program. And, that's a program where they're looking to diversify their supply chain, add more diverse businesses into their supplier base. And one of the things that we do is we connect our business owners that are certified with us with these corporate members in the hopes of eventually over time, these business owners being able to take advantage of market opportunities. So that's kind of what we do. Our particular organization has been in existence since 1973, so we've been doing this for quite some time. In our area, we have more than 1,200 businesses that are certified, and probably 140 or so businesses that are corporate members of our particular council. But there are 23 of these councils, and as you go through and speak with Beatrice, and my colleague and friend will tell you what her council does and how we all come together to make this network a very viable network for the growth and development of minority-owned businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Beatrice. We'll go to Beatrice next. Tell us a little bit about your organization, what economic development efforts in the Black business community you were doing.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity to share more about the Florida State Minorities Development Council. I appreciate the other panelists and the Mosaic Group for being such a champion for Black businesses and hosting this event during Black Business Month. Our council serves the entire state, and want to just expand a little bit more on some of the services and what we're doing to help Black businesses. One is we have a COVID relief and response program that focuses on helping firms with their PPP loan forgiveness, or if they're looking to identify additional sources of financing. If they need bonding, we provide training. We have a little over a dozen expert consultants, from legal to accounting to estimators, experts that specialize in e-commerce, who provide services and can create work products to build the capacity of Black firms at no cost to them. Additionally, we have the Florida Department of Transportation Business Development Initiative Specialized Development Program, where we help prime contractors meet their diversity goals on projects that are larger, that are $50 million and larger. For those that are listening out there, if you've never thought about doing business in road and highway, I highly recommend it, because it's such an area that's growing. And once the U.S. government, our legislators pass, our Congress pass the infrastructure bill, there are going to be even more opportunities in road work, bridges, and so forth. And lastly, we operate the SBA 7J program, where we help firms to do business with government. Many folks don't understand how to do business with government, and they're the biggest buyer in the world, the U.S. federal government. And so there are opportunities for Black businesses with federal government and local and municipal airports and seaports. Those are some of the programs that we have that really helps to build the capacity of our firms to win more opportunities, to grow and to employ more people, and to add to our overall economy.
Thank you for that. And so now we'll go to Dr. Roundtree. Dr. Roundtree.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. What I do is bring a different perspective. I'm an executive leadership coach, a trainer, and speaker. I'm certified with the John Maxwell team. And what I do is go into corporations and provide emotional intelligence, leadership training, interpersonal skills, conflict management training, and those kinds of topics. For me, I previously worked at Cheney University in Philadelphia. I worked in the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Support Center. And that was some years ago, but I thought it was great educational experience, because I saw firsthand how, what Terrence mentioned, how women are fronted for these prime contractors so that they can be eligible for various funding or for various contracts. And for me now, as a small business owner, I just launched full-time after being a business professor and program director at South University for 6 years. So I'm launching full time and I'm getting all these certifications, the Women Business Enterprise certification, the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise certification, the Women Owned Small Business certification. So, and I'm in the process of getting the county or the school district certification. So for me, as a business owner and having former experience within this space as an agency, I want, I want to help others to break through these barriers. I'm jumping all the hurdles and I'm trying to meet those key individuals to form those relationships that are so necessary so that I can actually get clients. I think I have more education for 2 lifetimes. I have a doctorate in business and a doctorate in ministry and a bachelor's in business and a MBA in training and development. If I take one more training class, I'm going to just, I don't want any more training. I want clients, and that's what I bring here today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Robert.
Hello, everyone. Well, I come to you humbly and I bring you greetings from, our superintendent of Broward County Public Schools, and just say that simply our mission is to grow the economic base of Broward County for the betterment and benefit of our students, families, and business community. Now, for those of you who don't know, Broward County is a little different than the U.S. average. So if you look at the U.S. average population, it is 13% Black. Broward County is 30% Black. So Broward County, while not known as a chocolate city, is twice as much of a Black population than the U.S. average. So as I'm out doing things for the betterment and benefit of our students, family, and business community, by definition, that is doing things that will enhance the lives of the Black business community.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And just a little bit, I think some of you may know me. I have Lauderdale in the city of Miami Gardens and been around for a little while, Miami-Dade County, as a communicator, chief of staff. But one of the main things that I've found in all of the places that I've worked, whether it be in the South or across the country in Washington State or in California, is that our minority businesses don't get a fair shake when it comes to looking at contracts with cities and counties and even and so one of the things that, along with a lot of folks I've worked on is making sure that small businesses, Black-owned minority businesses understand how to do businesses with those places that I've worked. How do you get to be a vendor? And then to continue to keep business once you become a vendor. So participating in this type of conference and this type of conversation is important to me on a personal level because it's the work that I've done that's sort of outside of what they said was in my job description. Because if we're not bringing people to the table, like, what are we here for? So I'm excited to be able to be here with you all today, not just to moderate, but to also listen and learn from you. And so I sort of wrote down a couple of things, specific words that I sort of felt like each met sort of what you were saying. So Terrence, I'm going to call you the connector. I think for Dr. Roundtree, I heard you're the trainer. And then for Beatrice, I called you the resource. And then for Robert, for lack of a better way to say it, you're the educator, right? So you're sort of the bridge that sort of brings it all together. And it may be where it starts and ends, right? And so I'm excited to hear what you're going to talk to us about today on this next question. Within the last year, we have seen many corporate companies make statements about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Some have created new mentoring and technical assistance programs and have even given out micro grants to Black-owned businesses. However, what about the supply chain? On average, how much of corporate and government agency spending with Black-owned businesses each year? Where are Black companies in the supply chain, and how does your organization assist? So let's start with the diversity, equity, and inclusion piece of that, because we see people creating these positions. What does that really mean when it comes down to the bottom line for our companies?
So, Petula, I'd like to say that I'm not sure whether right now, whether this is a moment or a movement. There's definitely been a shift, particularly after Mr. Floyd's death and the racial unrest and COVID. And for the first time in the history of this country, there's just been such a focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion and building wealth in communities of color. Depending on the organization, that's a real commitment. And some organizations did it because everyone else was, and it was the thing to do. The national organization has seen hundreds of new corporate members, and many of them did not have supplier diversity programs. And so it's going to take time for them to stand up programs that we consider to be world class. Additionally, a lot of the commitments did not necessarily focus on supplier diversity, but I can tell you firsthand that many of our Black firms, depending on what industries that they're in, have seen an uptick in the spend that they're experiencing with major corporations and governmental and educational institutions. And if you don't have the right product, the right price, the right customer service, it's hard to be part of anyone's supply chain. And so we also have found that there are a lot of startups because people determined, you know what, I don't want to be public. I don't want to deal with the public. Or this is the right time. I'm reassessing my life and I want to take the chance and bet on myself. And they've started companies, and some are having success and some are not. But what happens in the Black community when there are challenges where the rest of the world may catch pneumonia, we're on life support. That's how sometimes it's incredibly challenging. But for entrepreneurs who are out there, this is a great time to be in business. Some of our best known companies were started during downturns and difficult times, and they just have to figure out how they can get into the supply chain. Where does it make sense? Can they do business locally, regionally? Is it the small purchases? But there are opportunities out there despite this challenging economy.
Thank you for that.
Well, this is
You wanted to
Terrence.
say something. Okay.
And, I mean, a number of things have happened, and as Beatrice mentioned, because we're both in the same network, we have more corporate members now than we had, a year and years past. We have more businesses that have become certified and part of our network. So, that's positive. The thing is how you get, and a lot of people have made, a lot of these companies and corporations have made pronouncements about programs they want to have for diverse business, minority businesses, Black businesses. And those terms change almost depending on who's saying them. Right. But the question then becomes how you take pronouncements and actualize them. Because, I can say anything. I can say, yeah, we're going to put $500 million into this and that. But I'm probably not the person who's going to have to do it or figure out how it gets done. I think that's kind of where our network kind of comes in and kind of helping people to actualize some of these pronouncements that they made after George Floyd's death last May 25th of 2020. But at the same point in time, one of the things that I see is, a lot of Black-owned businesses and other minorities, but Black-owned businesses are small. So the first thing people say when you try to get into supply chain is you don't have the capacity. So one of the things that we try to do, two things. Number one, we try to bring these businesses together to go after opportunities, thereby enhancing their capabilities and capacity. So that's number one. Number two, and one of the things we're trying to do in the New York area is what we call debundling contracts. And this is something that we look at certainly in the public sector. So if you have a contract that's $10 million, but if you can break that contract up into pieces where maybe we're not talking 10 million, but we're talking $500,000. Now you have more of an opportunity for smaller businesses to be able to participate and to be able, if they need bonding, if they need financing, to be able to access opportunities to get that kind of stuff so they can take advantage of these opportunities. But if you keep contracts at 10, 20, 30, 40 million, you're certain, no matter how many supply diversity programs and the like you have, you almost are excluding people just by that size. The same, so if you can debundle these contracts and break that allows more people to participate and develop the capacity that's necessary so that as they grow and they can go after larger opportunities. And so, one of the things that I try to make sure that we tell people is very simply, we try to give them the truth. And it may not always be what they want to hear, but we want to make sure that when they go after an opportunity, they recognize exactly what they're getting into. And I just use this as a quick example. If you get a very large contract, let's say you get a $3 million contract, and you walk out of the place and you're just thrilled to death. I got a $3 million contract. Now you got to figure out how to finance it. Usually you figure that out. You start thinking about that when you walked out the door. Now you got the contract. Now I finance it. So I walk over to my neighborhood bank, who says no. Now I got to figure out, how do I get money to be able to do this? And see, this is where the issues and problems come in, because now I go to an alternative lender who may charge me 20% interest. Do I try to finance this myself? So it's those kinds of things. If you're dealing with smaller opportunities, it's not as difficult to perhaps get affordable financing than trying to get financing that is going to put you in a negative or a bad situation. And that's what a lot of times what happens to our business owners. We see these opportunities, and then maybe we're fortunate enough to take advantage of them, but how do we see them through if we're fortunate enough to do this? So that's why in bringing people together, I think that's a way to enhance opportunities for these businesses to grow, and also for more of them to be involved in the supply chains, either in the public or the private sector.
Awesome. Anyone else want to speak on this particular? All right, Dr. Roundtree.
Yes. So one of the things that I noticed when I first embarked on my business full time, I started networking in free groups. And I had already been a member of the chamber, but even in the free groups, I only noticed less than a handful of minorities and African Americans networking in these free groups. Sometimes I was the only one on Zoom talking about my business. And then one day, a networking organization called Network in Action reached out to me. They saw my profile on LinkedIn. They said, hey, you have the profile because I was in sales. I was a professor, now a trainer. They said, you have the background to be a franchise owner for a networking organization. And because of my experience, thank God I had it since January, being one of a few African Americans or minorities, and talk about Black women, oh my gosh, really less than a handful. I was inspired to go ahead and purchase my own franchise to start my own networking group. And so I am trying, and I have a few heavy hitters in my networking organization. I have 2 groups, and I'm looking for industry specific, because I want us to come together so that we can collaborate to get clients through referrals. Because let me just say, my doctorate of business administration degree, the dissertation focused on those social networks that are needed for small businesses. But we have so much capital. We have the greatest, as African Americans, the greatest and highest purchasing power in the country. And so that means that we're making everybody rich. So if we can come together and truly, deliberately, intentionally, with a plan strategically to help support each other, just like you all were saying, collaborate on some of these bigger contracts. That's what other trainers do. They reach out to me and say, hey, can you partner with us? And we're going to bid on these particular contracts. That's the way to go. We need to be networkers. We need to come together in these groups and really support each other's businesses. What do I do? Since I've started my business full time, I try to identify, I have promotional materials and other things that I've needed where I target African American business owners to help me with my marketing material. I hired Tico Studios to help me to do videos. I mean, and that's how we can put our real dollars back into our community. I don't just target African Americans for networking. I'm an equal opportunity networker, but I want more of us to network intentionally. And we need to be more intentional. It's nice to go to the chambers. I'm a member of the Black Chamber as well, because I want, again, to identify and support my Black-owned businesses. We have to be more strategic. Every other race and culture are doing it. They're strategic. If their work, when I did my dissertation, I focused on this Black business incubator in the low-income part of Pennsylvania. And this was a fledgling small business incubator, barely making it, trying to get dollars from everyone, begging the government, begging the church, begging anyone who could support them. They were not getting the funding that they needed. But I went just a block up the street, and the Hispanic community was thriving. They were thriving. I just couldn't understand it. And of course, the majority culture was thriving. So I'm wondering, what is it about us that we can't come together? Because we have so much money that people need, majority culture needs, this worldwide economy needs. If we put our dollars together and be more intentional about putting it in, we have so much human capital, intelligence to be able to work together and build strong businesses together. That's the only way we're going to have and make a real difference, to provide solutions beyond, being in the wonderful programs that we've done enough. We've done enough. I've gone through all the programs. Other people are trying to find their ways. And I understand the protocol. I understand the bureaucracy, and we have to do that. We have to jump those hurdles so that we can remove every excuse. But beyond that, when you're sitting back, I had another trainer. She reached out to me in Fort Lauderdale. She said, I'm doing all this and I still don't have clients. So we have to move beyond the bureaucracy and the training and really intentionally come together. We have our own businesses. We talk about back in history before integration, how our businesses were thriving because we didn't have a choice. And it's a shame that it seems that choices have become the enemy of our ability to come together and spend dollars within our community first and foremost.
Thank you for that. Robert, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Not for this question. I'll wait for question 5. I have stuff for question 5.
Okay, great. So we will go on. How do Black-owned businesses become vendors or suppliers for corporate and or government agencies? And I know that's a question that's burning on most folks' minds because it's different, and each process is very different. I'm actually in the process of trying to do like federal government contracting, and oh my goodness, that's a whole like laundry list of things and email websites you have to visit, and you have to have this number and that number. I'm like, oh my Lord. So let's get into this one. How do we do it? And then how can you all help? Who do we go to on this panel that can help walk us through these processes? Who wants to start?
Well, I will give the perfunctory comment that everyone hates to hear. In the governmental sector, I represent the government, I guess, here as a local government. But we have public procurement policies. Just call it plain and simple. And so therefore, you have to be registered as a supplier in the database, right? There's a database of suppliers that you have to be registered in that cross-references the various municipality and federal references, right? If you're doing business in Broward County, you have to be registered in SunBiz, which is a state registration system that we link into. So before you can do anything, you got to be in SunBiz or you're not really a business in Florida. Then once you get registered in the business, then it's the steps of utilizing whatever public procurement third-party resource the organization uses. So if they use DemandStar, if they use BidSync, that's what they use. You complaining about DemandStar and BidSync will not really be instructive for you getting more business with that organization. So, knowing the rules of engagement. The real simple answer here is, how do you become a vendor or a supplier? Whoever it is, is you must know yourself, your business, and what your capabilities are. I'm stealing a little bit from Sun Tzu as the educator here. You have to know your particular customer. If your customer is a small business and you primarily are doing business directly with a small business owner, why on earth are you even trying to register to do business with Broward County Public Schools? Because we're not your customer or your constituency base. And finally, you have to know the situation. What is the current situation? I go back to it again. If your customer base is a small business, and I hint, hint, wink, wink, I believe every small business should have small businesses as their customer base, because small businesses are the largest group of businesses in America. I used to work for a multi-billion, multinational corporation that our entire focus was small business. So while everybody else was trying to do business with that multinational corporation, that corporation was just doing business with small business and became a multi-billion-dollar company, basically corroborating the words of our good doctor that too often we forget about ourselves. So if you really know the situation of what's going on, know who your true customer is, and know yourself, getting to become a vendor or supplier in a corporate or governmental agency is, as they say, easy peasy, because you know enough to fill out the form. And if you don't have the desire to fill out the form, you don't want to do business in public sector. If you don't have a desire to meet and greet and to, if you will, wine and dine, you don't have a desire to do business in the corporate sector. And if you don't have a desire to get on the phone and do cold calls and knock on doors and go to networking events, you do not have a desire to do business in the small business sector. So if you do not have the desire to do business, you do not have the desire to do business, period. So for those that have a desire to do business, they will know themselves, they will know their customer, and they will know the situation, and they won't be knocking on a door that's not for them. Not every door is meant to be opened by you because it may not be for you.
I'd like to add also to, it's really important to bid on projects. I just put in the chat, we're having a part 1 and part 2 on RFP and RFQs, the requirements and what the process is like. And that's going to be a very hands-on workshop. So many times Black businesses will learn about opportunities, but don't take the chance to bid on them. I highly would recommend bidding on small purchases. For example, we had an event yesterday and Miami-Dade Schools was our guest. And I want to say $75,000, $50,000 is the minimum purchase where all they have to do is go out and get a quote. And Robert, how much is it for Broward Schools? The same? Okay. So imagine if you got, 4 $50,000 contracts, within a month or a year, what have you. Sharpen your pencil, particularly if you're going to do business in the public sector, because it's always about lowest bids. Identify strategic alliance partners and joint venture partners to really build your expertise, to make you seem larger than you are. So if Paula Petula can do the marketing and I can, do the transportation, we may have a match. Where do our strengths match to then meet the needs of the customer? You've got to make sure you've got the capital before you bid on projects, or at least a way to buy the products that you need or pay for those that are going to deliver the services, because that's critical to the success. And when you bid, you don't bid just to bid, but to be sure that you're profitable. Because sometimes many of our firms will win contracts and they realize they didn't leave room for profits. If it doesn't make money, if it doesn't make a profit, it doesn't make sense. So you've got to be very clear. Am I bidding on this project to gain a foothold with Broward County Schools so that I can bid maybe and win a larger contract where it's more profitable to get the experience? Because you have to make money. That's what you're in business to do. And then be very targeted in terms of your approach. Who buys your goods and services? Are they currently buying? Are they in growth mode? Does it make sense for me to approach them for my specific product or service? And if you've got a unique offering, you may have something that may revolutionize what they're doing, and to help them grow. And how do you get in front of the right people? I mean, yesterday we had an event, Meet the New. We had 3 corporations and government agencies that had opportunities. And I want to say we had right under 100 people that attended, and they got one-on-one opportunities with those buyers, with those representatives. And those are the kinds of activities you can't afford to miss. You have to be choosy in terms of where you go, because your time is valuable and it's an incredible resource as well. But those are the recommendations that I'd make to be part of the supply chain, whether it's the public or private sector.
Anyone else want to add anything before we move on?
I'll just say one thing. What we tell our clients is you need to know if you're going after a particular client, especially some of the ones that we have as corporate members in the larger companies, but any client, you need to know what it is they do. And just as an example, for one of our corporate members is JP Morgan Chase. Okay, so everybody knows that JP Morgan Chase is a bank. They do a variety of other things. And when you meet with somebody at an event that's from, say, a JP Morgan Chase, they want to know that you know what they do, that you've taken some time to do some research to find out what it is they do, what it is they buy, and when they buy it. And years ago, so I might be dating myself, when people had to go to the library to get this information, you no longer have to do that because everybody got a cell phone, and everybody's cell phone got Google. And you can Google people and find out what it is they do, because everybody got a website. And publicly traded companies not only have a website, they have an annual report, and this information's in it. So what I tell people is, before you say, hey, I want to do business with this one, that one, the other, find out what it is they do and find out if they buy your product or service. Second thing, and I think this is extremely important, specifically for small business, and it has changed since the unfortunate pandemic. You don't meet people in person as much as you used to.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you present yourself on Zoom, on Teams, or whatever one of these virtual things are? How are you presenting yourself? Because you probably only got about 5 minutes to say whatever it is you're going to say anyway. How do you make sure you get out what it is you need to get out in 5 minutes and it makes sense and it looks good? How do you put together a capability statement so you have a lead behind, so after you spoke to these people, they know what it is you do? It's all of those kinds of things that I think are extraordinarily important, whether you're doing business in the public sector or the private sector. And the third thing is visibility. If people are not going to send you information at your house, at your business. You got to get out and meet people. You got to make sure that, yes, like Beatrice said, there are a lot of different events going on. Figure out the events that are going to be beneficial to you, but show up to them and make sure that people know you're there. Because what a lot of people do is they get on these Zoom calls, whatever, and they turn off the camera and they're doing other work and half listening to what's going on. So if you half listen, after the conference is over, don't complain when you miss something that probably could have been helpful to you. It's not a right to own a business, it's a privilege to own a business. And so therefore, make sure that you take your business and that privilege that you have, that you're going to be offering products and services that people need from you, and let everybody know how good you are, why you do what you do, and how what you do benefits them.
All excellent points. Dr. Roundtree, did you want to add something?
I love what Terrence just said, because that's, my wheelhouse. And what I do when I work with business owners, I really try to help them to show up professionally, because it is about who you know, who you like, and who you can trust. And so if we're not showing up, this particular platform does not provide me the ability to use my normal Zoom background, which has my logo and my QR code. But as you can see, my background is still professional. It's key. It's key because of perception and the impressions that we make. It takes seconds before we decide whether or not we can trust you to come in and work with our clients or work with our employees. And that's something that I do with one-on-one clients and in companies, is helping them to show up appropriately and professionally, because it's the way we show up, it's how we communicate. The other thing I wanted to share was, it does take time. I mean, I've only been out here full time since March. And because I've been at this in one form or fashion, behind the scenes and in agencies and so forth, it is a time consuming endeavor. It takes time to cultivate relationships. And that's why what you all were saying about getting out there, going to networking events is so key. That's why I decided to buy my own franchise group, so that I could meet these decision makers and make positive relationships so that people can get to know me. If you look on my LinkedIn, you'll see that I'm posting almost every other day. Look on me at Facebook, I'm still showing up professionally. Instagram, I'm there, alignable. I'm there. You create another one and I'll be there. Why? Because this is a new world. So we do have to learn how to present ourselves online. One of the other things I did when I first started, I took a course with this engineer, Chris Prouty. Now, Chris Prouty is a guru when it comes to social media. He gave a class on how to show up, how to use the technology and so forth. And it really has been very valuable to me as a solopreneur, as an entrepreneur. Even though I'm an LLC, you know what? I still have to know how to present myself. And again, what all of you said, working in these diversity agencies, we do have to cross our T's and dot our I's and jump through the hurdles and the hoops to get to where we want to go. And that's how I look at them. If I got to, thank God I did all this paperwork, submitted all this paperwork for the Women Business Enterprise Council. Because I did that one time, when I had to do it again for my DBE with the Florida Department of Transportation, thank God it didn't take me forever like it did the first time. All that information now is in one place. I did it for the county, just waiting for them to get back to me. So even though it is a lot of work, and there's agencies out here. I mean, I think one of them, she's a sponsor. They can help you through that process. I decided to do it on my own to save money and because I wanted to understand the process for myself. But if you don't have time, there are people out there who, like these agencies, who can also support you.
Petula, I want to share, I put it in the chat, an opportunity that specifically for companies that specialize in digital and marketing. NBC Universal has their EDGE program. It's not only going to provide cash, but also specific services. So I put that in the chat, and I'll be putting additional information that may be of interest to the audience. But that's just one example of what one company is doing, and we'll be announcing a program that that Comcast is doing. That's going to be a grant program that will be providing $10,000 to 100 companies in Dade and Broward. We're just waiting for the information to make sure that we're getting the word out about that program as well.
Awesome, thank you. So we've got a few more questions, and I want to make sure we get to them. Are business mentoring, mentor, protege, and business matchmaking programs for suppliers effective? And I kind of hear that they are. I want us to go a little more in depth in that. And then, does your organization have any small minority Black businesses? Who wants to take a stab at it first?
Double
Beatrice?
yes. 2 yeses.
Yeah.
2 yeses.
So we're predominantly Hispanic, followed by African American or Black businesses, because in South Florida that can mean so many things. Followed by Asian Indians in terms of our, the breakdown of ethnicity. for us. We have the distinction of having one of the largest Black-owned firms in the country certified with us. Troy Taylor owns Coke, Florida, out of Tampa. And there are some fairly large companies. One that comes to mind is a company called Compass On Site, owned by Marcel Haywood. Some of his customers include Broward Schools, University of Miami, Jackson Health, Walgreens, Apple. So they found success in our network, and they're in the what is it called, buying mode during this pandemic, and they've grown to other parts of the state. Dr. Rudolph Moise is another one of our Black-owned firms that provides traditional healthcare and just got into the beauty and business in terms of doing all kinds of treatments and so forth. I've been seeing his commercials on ABC Channel 10. Another successful of our Black-owned firms that gives our women a shout out is Alpha One Staffing, that's owned by Gary Harris, one of the largest employers in South Florida and one of the largest Black-owned firms in the state of Florida. So again, depending on what industry you're in, where you are in your company's life cycle, Black firms are having success. And then the last one I want to share is Joe Louis Saint, and we're not related, who owns Show Technology Inc. They've done AV services for President Obama, Clinton, both Bushes. They do business nationally, and they've had to pivot, which most of us have had to do during the pandemic. And they've opened a studio on site. They're doing virtual events. And so they're finding ways to adapt. And I encourage those that are out there to do the same thing. How do you stay relevant? How do you still become, how do you become front and center with your potential customers? And there are definitely strategies to do just that.
Thank you for that.
Well, we have a lot of Black-owned businesses. We're in the New York area, so there are a lot of Black-owned businesses of varying sizes and varying industries, just as Beatrice had mentioned. But as far as mentorship programs are concerned, it really helps if you level set what the expectations are. What is the mentor supposed to bring to this, and how open is the mentee to receiving instruction, information? If you have a mentor he or she is going to really be invested in trying to help these businesses or business owners be able to develop, grow, and scale to the next level, and you have a business owner as a mentee who's open to receiving information, because not everybody is, then you have a good program. I'll give an example. Program, and those that were able to get mentors, and they were all the larger business owners who really were in the program because they really wanted to help these smaller businesses scale, did well. The business owners who were in the program who were just in it because they knew that this would look favorable to the state of New York when they tried to go after business on their own, those generally didn't work well. So I think if you level set what the expectations are, mentor, mentee, and you get people who are really committed to it, it can work well. And it's probably something, certainly in the public sector, but also in the private sector, that can be very helpful as smaller businesses are looking to scale and grow.
Thank you for that, Terrence. Anyone else want to dive in? Okay, so we're going to go on to the next question. And I think, Robert, you said this one was for you, so I'm going to make sure you get this one first. What are the keys to success to doing business in supply chains?
Well, as Polonius reminds us that brevity is the soul of wit, therefore I will be brief. I will bring you this comment from Sandy Michael McDonald of Broward County, my play cousin, big brother. People, process, and platform. The key to success in any supply chain is understanding the people, the process, and the platform. If you don't understand those 3 Ps, you will not have, as Beatrice points out, profit. It's those 3 Ps that are essential to your profit. All too often in the supply chain, we forget about one of those Ps, either the process that you need to submit to, the platform that you need to leverage, and the people that will execute within it. So those are the comments from Sandy Michael McDonald. So if you see him on the street, you can let him know I quoted him, right along there with Poloni.
Thank you so much for that. Who wants to jump in right after that?
I want to say something about mentoring. I want to go back to that. We do have a formal mentorship program with our Florida Department of Transportation program, where primes are matched with DBEs, which are disadvantaged business enterprises. So some folks think, do I need a formal mentor relationship? And if you get one great meeting, okay, with the right person, and they provide the right information and you prepare for the meeting, that could be a one-time session that could be considered mentoring. And I think as practitioners and other businesses that are supporting each other, we need to go beyond mentoring and sponsor. So there are young people in my life or businesses that I support, and I don't just say, here's the information, but I'll say, I've already bought the ticket for you. Here is the introduction, and I've made it already. Here is the opportunity. Here's the marriage that we're looking to make. Because if we're going to help each other through this challenging time, we have to go beyond mentoring and really supporting marketing for each other. So if you happen to go into a room, virtual, whether in person, and it's an opportunity for someone else, then why not share that? So I'm always thinking about, okay, if I hear about something, who can benefit? And that's what we need, more collective action. And mentoring doesn't necessarily have to be a lifetime. One great introduction, one great, hey, you know what, sis, you're doing it this way, but do it that way. This would be better. Or let me sponsor someone doing your capability statement. Or this is what I've noticed that's wrong about how you're presenting yourself online, can go a long way and make a difference. So I did want to share that as it relates to mentoring.
Thank you for that. Those were great nuggets. Dr. Roundtree, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Just that I really appreciate what Beatrice just said as far as mentoring, because sometimes we do have the mentality or the misconception, because I don't think it's everyone, that we don't support each other. You always hear that we Black people or Black businesses just don't support each other. And I think the mentoring is key. I know for myself, I go after corporate clients as well as government agencies and government clients. And I know who my mentors are in the private sector, or I should say in corporate. But it has been harder for me to identify who those mentors are in the governmental arena. So, Beatrice, I'm reaching out to you. So
Okay.
just want you to know. Just
as long as you're prepared. That I'm not available.
I think I'm prepared, but if I'm not too shy to go.
No, not prepared in that sense.
Okay.
My schedule's a little crazy next week. That's all.
I'm ready. But yeah,
okay,
I appreciate you all saying that, because it is key. We really have to help each other, especially if this is about wealth. If we're going to put the money back into our community, we have to help each other so that we can have a legacy and wealth building for our children. If we're still these one-offs, and we're admiring a few sisters and brothers who've made it, but we're still struggling, or we can't bring someone with us, then it's for naught. There is not going to be generational wealth.
And since you brought up those words, generational wealth, I'm going to skip one and come back to it and ask this question. How can business owners utilize corporate and governmental contracting opportunities to build generational wealth?
Wow. So the one recommendation I would make is always have both your feet in both the public and private sector. So, when there are downturns, many times government has stimulus, as we recently had. And if you've never done business with government, it's a tough time to, learn. It may take you a little while. So have both, government and major corporations or consumer, business to consumer business. Additionally, understanding what are some of the long-term buying needs of some of these government agencies. For example, Broward Schools is in its middle of its capital projects, which means a lot is happening in terms of new construction as well as maintenance and so forth. So where do you fit in? How much time frame do you need? Going back to the Department of Transportation, and I'll drop this in the link, they have 5-year plans. So what projects are they focused on and are spending money for the next 5 years? Unfortunately, in the private sector, it's a little bit more challenging because they don't really, put their bids out on a website. So you have to go in, register with their portals, be very good about what you share, about what you do in the services and your capacity. So when they do have bids, they can forward them to you or include you in the supply chain for opportunities. And we'll be hosting another Meet the New at the end of the year. So we'll have NASCAR, Logitech, Bay Healthcare, and I'm drawing a blank on it. Oh, and the Knight Foundation. They just joined us locally. So they'll be sharing about what they buy, how they buy, and so forth. And I know several other organizations, including Terrence and Robert's group, that have these activities regularly. What you learn in these sessions is easily transferable to other bidding opportunities as well. And talking about generational wealth, the quickest way to wealth, because more than 76% of self-made millionaires in the United States are entrepreneurs, is entrepreneurship. But it's not for everyone. It is not for the faint at heart. That's for sure.
And I'll just add to that. One of the things that I think has helped or had to help a lot of people is that ability to look at the market and be able to pivot to what current market opportunities are. And one of the things that a lot of people had to do with the pandemic is look at what is needed under these current market conditions. And can I put myself in a position to offer those products and or services that are needed to match what market opportunities exist? And some of our clients, and I'm sure some of Beatrice's also, were able to pivot over the last 18 or so months to be able to offer products and services that fit the current market conditions. So the one thing that you definitely need to be as an entrepreneur, and if you are going to develop generational wealth, you need to be aware, market aware. So you got to make sure that you pay attention to what's going on. And, people get their information a variety of ways, online, on television. Some people still read newspapers, whatever. But you need to make sure that you're aware of what's going on. And you need to determine, hey, if I can't offer these products or services, do I know somebody who can, and can I partner with them? And, and can we trust that we can put a partnership together, maybe only for one particular opportunity? But there was a song years ago, and I use this all the time. 10% of something beats 100% of nothing. So, get to that point where you can, hey, maybe we can all come together. I get 10, you get 10, and we're developing each other's skills. We're taking advantage of a market opportunity. That's how we all grow. That's what, kind of leads to your generational development and wealth. And most importantly, and I think Dr. Roundtree mentioned this before, we got to support each other. Okay? We got to get past, and I'm just going to say it, the crab in the barrel mentality. We got to get past, because I've done well, you got to figure out how to knock me down instead of helping each other up. That's how we move forward as a people. And we got to stop hating on each other about people doing well and try to get with each other and help more people do well. And I think that's very important. That's there's the conversation we all have publicly and the one we don't want to have publicly. But what we got to deal with is the one so maybe we quietly have it, but guess what? As a people, we need to have it. And we need to have it now. Because we can't be dependent upon other people to sail our boat. We got to sell our own boat. And the only way we're going to sell our own boat is to stop having things that are negative against each other and work toward helping each other develop our businesses, develop our school systems, develop our neighborhoods. So economic development meshes with community development, and we are able to move our own stuff forward instead of being dependent upon other people to do what we can do for ourselves.
Amen. Amen.
Excellent point.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say amen to everything that Terrence just said. I'm a leadership coach, a trainer, speaker, but I had to pivot when I saw what was happening in the country and their interest in diversity, equity, and inclusion. I pivoted. I made that my priority. Now I'm certified to go into these companies and train their employees to help them to be more self-aware, to help us to be more self-aware about what we can do to change the mindset, one person at a time, one conversation, one training at a time about the racial inequities, the pay inequities that exist in our country, and not just talk and train, but how to overcome some of these dynamics. And that was a big pivot for me. It was in the back burner. Now it's at the forefront. So yes, we definitely have to pivot.
Awesome. And so as we're getting down to, I think we're about 10 minutes we have left in this session. Before we get to, your last sort of remarks, there were a lot of takeaways that you all sort of left with us. And so I'm going to sort of highlight them and then come back around so you can give us your last thoughts or your last golden nugget for our listeners. One of the things that I think Terrence said was be intentional. And that's one of the things in communications I tell people all the time. You have to be intentional with your communication, but you also have to be intentional with your listening. And so as you're talking about collaboration and networking, it's not so much about what you say all the time. It's also about what you hear. So when you're doing that research that Terrence also talked about, it's how you listen to what someone says their needs are, so that when you're putting that proposal or that RFP together, you're speaking directly to what they need. And that's very, very important. So you have to not just do your research, but then when you're in that room with them for those 5 or 10 minutes, you're getting all the other information that you can't get off of Google, right? And then one of the other things I heard was know the rules of engagement, know your business, know your customer, know the situation. Those are key, I think, to doing any type of work in business. Be targeted with your approach. Research is key. Visibility is important. And then how do you show up? So whether it's on virtual settings like this or in person or on the phone, how you show up is important. And that first 1 or 2 minutes is going to be key to whether they call you back, whether you get the contract, and all of those other things. I think Beatrice talked about, identifying your strategic partners, know where your strengths match, and knowing how to do that collaboration in a meaningful way to move things forward. I think Robert said people, process, platform. And so tell Sandy we got that one, people, process, platform. And then the other thing that was really important, I thought, was going beyond mentoring to sponsoring, supporting, marketing each other. And so sometimes the mentee can also do that for the mentor and vice versa, of course. And I think that's very important because sometimes the mentee is going to have contacts that the mentor may not have. And so how do we support each other collaboratively is important. And then one of the other last things I heard was have your feet in both the public and private sector. Being able to pivot, knowing when to pivot and how to pivot. And so these are all the salient points that I got that I hope the listeners and the viewers got as well. So now we'll sort of go into our wrap up piece. with each one of you sort of giving us what's that golden nugget that you want the audience to take away from today. And we'll start with Terrence.
I think the biggest thing is this. You're going to hear the word no. You can't let no bother you. No to me means not no forever. It means no now. So you've got to be a person as a business owner. Once you get in supply chain, you've got to be a person who knows how to develop relationships. We are all in the relationship business, and some relationships work out better than others. But no relationship or anyone that's going to last a long time is going to be somebody, it's going to be based on something that has instant gratification. People have got to be in it for the long run. So what I suggest to everybody, if you want to do business, whether it's the public sector, the private sector, grow your business, get past no, get past not now, and keep at it. Stay positive. Keep at it. Keep at it. Because it's those people who keep at it are the ones that end up in business 20, 30, 40 years. And that's where you get your generational growth. Because everybody's not going to want what you sell, but there are going to be people who do. So you just got to keep knocking on the doors, keep talking to people. And before you know it, one day you're going to wake up and say, it was worth it.
Awesome. Dr. Roundtree?
For me, the biggest takeaway is our mindset. How do we value ourselves as entrepreneurs? How do we value each other, with whether you're working on behalf of the private or the public sector? Who are we pulling up? Who are we supporting? How are we helping them? Are we pulling them aside and giving them some advice that could help them to do better? Are we introducing them to key people that they need to talk to by networking? So our mindset, and knowing that if we're going to really build wealth in our community versus making everyone else rich and they're dependent on our dollars, make sure we're putting those dollars back into our community intentionally. Seek out that person who knows how to do web design, who knows how to do social media training, who knows how to do whatever it is we need as startup businesses. Who can we target? Who can we support? Who else can do training? Dr. Roundtree has Roundtree Training and Consulting, and she can do A, B, and C. Let me link up with her. Let me partner with her. Stop being afraid of each other. Stop competing against each other. Help start collaborating and being strategic so that we can build wealth, which will build wealth for the entire country and beyond. So that's all I have to say.
I love that. Robert?
First step of generational wealth is spend less today. I'll let that marinate for a minute. But my nugget for you comes from Robert Frost, because here at Broward County Public Schools, we did not pivot during the pandemic. We are focused on education, focused on growing the economic base, and I am personally committed to making sure that Broward County Public Schools achieves that goal. So in taking from Frost, I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep.
Very good. Thank you so much. And Beatrice?
So my last few nuggets is it's about collaboration, because you can't do it alone. It's how do you build your capacity? So what resources are out there that helps you grow so that you're able to win more opportunities? Got to get the money right. So that next C is capital. And you want to get it before you need it, because you don't want to have the contract and then go to the bank. So you want to have that line of credit. You want to have, whether it's credit cards, whatever you need in order to fulfill more contracts. You want to get certified. And I know people say, oh man, there's that word again, but I got certified. I didn't get anything. But if you've done a targeted approach, you'll know exactly what certifications you need to do. And like Dr. Roundtree said, she did one and then the other. You may want to do them all at the same time, because they're going to ask for the same information and they'll be due around the same time, which will make you remember, right? And then you want to win more contracts. You want to bid. You want to identify where are the opportunities. What's my best source of leads. What does my funnel look like to be able to win more contracts? So collaboration, capacity, capital, certification that leads to more contracts.
Awesome. This has been a great panel, and I want to thank you all for really leaning in and giving us all of the information that you've shared today. I know I have certainly learned a lot, and I know I still have some work to do, and I'll probably be calling each one of you at some point in my process with my own personal business. But I think anyone that is listening, that's watching, if they didn't gain anything today, then something's wrong with them, because this has really been jam-packed with real, truly golden nuggets, but information I think that we can use as individuals and businesses as we look to sort of change the narrative for our communities, because this is really what we're talking about as we talk about building Black businesses and supply chains, is it changes the narrative for our communities and our families. And so as the country is pivoting, and that's a huge word, because we've had to do it during COVID, I think we as a community have to continue to pivot and pivot back to what we know and not what we've been told. And so thank each one of you for taking your time and spending it with us this afternoon.
Most definitely. And I also want
Thank
to
you.
thank, on behalf of the Mosaic Group, I also want to thank everyone, all of the panelists. Ms. Burks, I slighted you on your bio, on sharing information on your bio. I apologize for that. I did hear you share a bit about your background and experience. This broadcast is going to shut off in just a moment, but I want to let everyone know that full bios are in the loop. So please stop by the lobby and have a look at the bios of each of the panelists that we have with us and the moderators. Lots of good information. There's also a networking room and an opportunity to do that. Stop by the lobby, grab all those links, check out our sponsors. If you have any questions that didn't make it into this broadcast, feel comfortable submitting your questions directly to the Mosaic team, and we will get them to the appropriate panelists. Again, we thank everyone for your time, professionalism, and the insight. Thank you so much.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having us.
Thank you.
And we are going to be offline. All right, take care.
All right.